My name is Jordan, if you haven't met me. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just wanted to say, on behalf of all the EarthRanger team, we're just so thankful that you came and you joined us. It's our pleasure to really provide a venue for you all to connect, because we feel like when you guys are together under one venue, that's where collaboration starts, that's where innovation happens, and that's where we can drive change. So thank you on behalf of the EarthRanger team for coming and being part of this. So our final speaker, he needs no introduction. You all know him. He's been our gracious MC all week. Please join me in welcoming Jes Lefcourt.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. So when I started to put together the thoughts around presentations that we typically give at the user conference, which, I don't want to say it's formulaic, but there are things that you expect to see here, and which, we had our welcome, which we did, but typically we also do the walkthrough of the last year and our roadmap and the plans for next year and all of these sorts of things. And I saw the agenda for the event, and I saw it half an hour at the end. I wondered what I did wrong last year. But we'll try to make it work. So I will be talking about our plans for next year. I also do want to talk about the theme of the conference of transforming conservation together. But first, of course, a pangolin. So one of the things, so I took this video in Gorongosa. A couple folks from Gorongosa is here. Shout out to Gorongosa. And pangolins have a really, really sticky tongue that actually winds up making bubbles in water when they drink. And I could watch this video on repeat all day, every day. Especially the part where she takes a little feather off of his head, which is just the most adorable thing. So wait for it. There we go. Oh, I love that video. All right. So EarthRanger today, we are really proud and thankful to be able to work with now over 500 different conservation organizations and sites in over 60 countries. We got our start in Africa. We still feel very much at home in Africa and love Africa, and we also are very interested in seeing how we can assist in conservation across the world. And particularly in Latin America now, we're starting to see that growth, and we're very excited about it. And we really appreciate our attendees, colleagues who came here from Latin America to join us for the conference as well. This isn't a slide that we've actually ever shown publicly before. I don't think it's ever. It's kind of getting to the point that it's really fun to think and talk about. But this is what the EarthRanger database actually looks like now, which is about 850 million data points and observations. Those are animal locations and ranger locations. We have about 4.5 million different events in the database of arrests and trophy seizures and positive human-wildlife conflict interventions. And these are the things that all of you have recorded. We also now have over 40,000 actively tracked subjects, so that there are more than this many subjects in the database. These are the ones that recently have data. So this is what the actual live things that are being tracked today through EarthRanger. That includes 14,000 rangers around the world that today are visible in an operations room where their operations can be monitored, where they can be protected because they're shown EarthRanger. That's 8,700 animals, including 2,700 elephants. And if you do the math on how many of those elephants are actually part of a herd, and therefore how many elephants within all of those herds are actually now monitored and protected, thanks to all of your efforts, but using EarthRanger, it's really quite astounding. And I don't have a point here. It's just It's incredible to see the impact of this whole community coming together. And also, I do want for folks to start thinking about, with all of these data now available, not available, available within your systems, but theoretically available in some way to the conservation community, what can we start to do together with some of those data? So looking forward to next year, taking a look at some of the roadmaps, and as a reminder, we now have 4 different development teams working on EarthRanger. So we have one of them that works on the core of EarthRanger and the website. It's what you think of when you think of the EarthRanger website, and it's up on a wall of an operations room, perhaps. We have the mobile team that's working on the mobile application, the Gundi team working on integrations, and now the newly formed and to-be-grown Ecoscope team. So on the web, what we will be working on first is completing internationalization. So today you can define a data model in whatever language you like, but there are still aspects of the experience and application that are left in English. We want to rectify that. It shouldn't be that way. So we'll be fixing that in Q2 of 2024. In 2024, we'll also be unveiling our report form builder, which will allow people to finally define and modify data schemas using intuitive drag and drop interfaces without having to ever see JSON. Yes, I agree. Joshua's clapping over there, but I'm with him. Q3 starts to get into something that we've been excited about for a really, really long time. And it's something that we've been wanting to get to, but we've had some other infrastructure things that we had to take care of first. And it's a feature that we call advanced icon and track formatting. And to borrow a very clever phrase from Ted, this is where EarthRanger really truly becomes a domain awareness system. This is the idea that you can tie different aspects of things that are being measured and monitored to the way that they're visually represented. So based on the how old a data observation is, based on how fast something is moving, based on the actual reading of a battery collar, based on whether or not a subject recently crossed over a geofence boundary, being able to change the color, size, position, rotation, opacity of the icons and the tracks in EarthRanger so that standing 15 feet away in an operations room, you can glance at the map and know without actually looking at an event feed the exact state that everything is in. So really excited about that. And then in Q4, we'll be working on some additional scalability items. So I hope that a lot of people are familiar with and got to some of the presentations about LoRa and some of these other technologies. So the wonderful thing about LoRa is that you now have something that consumes low enough power and can transmit over long enough distances that you can start taking observation points every 15 seconds today. The horrible thing about LoRa is that you're now taking observation points every 15 seconds as software developers. So a system that was designed to display data coming from animal collars that were transmitting every hour or a few hours, or maybe even radios that were transmitting every 15 minutes. When you start talking about something that's transmitting every 15 seconds, you're talking about literally orders of magnitude additional data. And so in Q4, we'll be working on the way that the server application and the client application of EarthRanger communicate to one another so that there are you no longer have to download all of the individual data points in order for them to be shown on the screen. Instead, the server can render these things, and it takes the load off of the client. It takes the load off of the data transmission. It takes the load off of your own computer to do those things. So I hope I explained that well enough. For the GIS folks in the crowd, this is taking the data points that are currently being drawn on top of the map and changing it into vectorized data as part of the actual map tiles. On mobile, in Q1, this is a little bit of an internal plumbing also. We're going to improve the way that data is synchronized between the EarthRanger server and the mobile application. Not just received, but actually synchronized. And so that will then allow us later in Q1 to start displaying additional information from EarthRanger inside of EarthRanger Mobile. And this is the reason we made EarthRanger mobile. There are many other fantastic mobile data collection applications out there, but the thing that is unique to the data that's available in EarthRanger, and the thing that makes sense that other applications don't do, is display data that is uniquely gathered in EarthRanger in that mobile application. And so, for example, all of the tracked animals, all of the ranger locations, the information that are coming from different sensors, being able to display those inside the mobile application so that when you're in the field, you can view the most recent location of your colleagues, of nearby animals, of nearby assets, of course assuming the right permissions. But so that you have that information available to you so that you can be more effective and safer in the field. In Q2, we'll be adding support for offline maps so that when you don't have connectivity out in the field, you still have access to not just a base map, but also the features that are part of your EarthRanger configuration. So you have that for context on the map in the mobile application. And in Q3, we'll be rolling out what we're referring to as Quick Capture, although I think there are other products out there that also use that name, so we might have to adjust that. But Quick Capture is the ability to define buttons, really easily access buttons, just on the interface of EarthRanger Mobile that capture commonly captured data without stepping through the entire form. So for example, to have a button that says black rhino observation, so you hit that, and then the only other thing you're asked for is a number, you hit 3, enter. And then just from that, you've now recorded a wildlife observation, the species is set to black rhino, the number is set to 2, you have the location off of the GPS, you have the time off of the cell phone, you have who recorded it based on who logged it. And so whether you're a ranger in the field taking observations or interacting with something that's you don't want to be spending a lot of time on a phone, or if you are a pilot logging the location of wildlife and using perhaps a larger tablet, you'll be able to do those things very, very easily with just a few taps. Now that I bring up the pilot, the other reason for the display subject, the other piece of that, will be tools to help you navigate to and find a subject. On the Gundi side, some of this gets a little bit more technical, but in Q1 we're going to be adding the ability to update events. So currently Gundi is a pipe that sends data to a system. But if there are modifications to those data, the source system doesn't have the ability to inform the destination system that it's changed, which makes sense if you're grabbing data off of a caller, because the fact that this caller was at this location 5 days ago isn't going to change. But as we start to add additional types of data as inputs, the need to be able to update those data become more important. In Q2, we're rolling out what we're calling Smart EarthRanger version 3 integration. So this, you'll have to have attended some of the other sessions to get into the weeds of this, and we'll also post this on our website. But basically, we are continuing to evolve the way that EarthRanger and Smart are integrated to be more robust. Today, the integration is based on queries that you can define in Smart, whereas really we want to have them based on the underlying data and not be, we want to be able to represent the data more fully than what you can do through a query. So that's one example, but also having bidirectional updates of patrol status and observations and those sorts of things. Q2 for the more technical folks in the audience is to support a type of data interchange called MQTT, which is very common in integrated sensors from the IoT world, if you're familiar. If you're not familiar, don't worry about it. It just means that there will be more types of devices that we'll be able to integrate. Later in Q2, and then building on top of it from there, we'll also be rolling out the new Gundi portal that allows people to manage their own integrations, create new connections, draw new pipelines to new destinations, things that right now we do through the support team. And then towards the end of next year, we're going to be adding a rules engine to Gundi, which allows you to define, as it sounds, like rules of how the data are handled. So things like if a data point is within this geographic area, send it to that destination point. If not, send it to this destination point. If some value is above some threshold, then send it to this system, where it needs to be handled immediately. But if it's not an emergency, then just send it off to this system where it can just be archived. Things like that. Ecoscope. Our goal is that by the end of Q1, you will be able to interact with the Ecoscope modules and use them to analyze your data without ever seeing code. So you'll be able to execute those modules and configure them without having to actually run the underlying Python as you have to today. So this is where we take Ecoscope from being a tool for hardcore analysts and really put it into the hands of people without a data science and development background. You'll also then be able to schedule their execution. So I want to receive my Ranger patrol effort report every Friday at 8 a.m. for the prior week via email with a link via WhatsApp or whatever. In Q2, we'll be integrating that directly into EarthRanger so that you don't have to launch a different system, that there will be a reports tab directly inside EarthRanger that will allow you to execute those things. That's the point at which we feel comfortable saying that we can now transition from Tableau onto Ecoscope. So that's when you'll be getting an email from us saying, what do you think? And does this meet your needs? And we'll be following up with many, if not all of you, to make sure that those needs are met. In Q3, we'll start looking at interactive data exploration. So being able to play with your data, change filters so that things change immediately on the screen, start diving into things, saying, show me more detail about that. And then Q4, unveiling an actual module library that developers can contribute to, as opposed to something that is done more behind the scenes. Please do take that timeline with a little bit of a grain of salt, because we'll also be building the team during this phase. And so, like all things, depending on when you find the right people is when you have the resources to build them. So, if we find some really amazing people, it could move faster. If it takes a while to find those people, it could move a little bit slower, but that's roughly the idea. I want to transition now a little bit and talk about a change that we're also going to be making philosophically. And this is something that I've started to think of as the idea of expanding our notion of what it means to be a member of a team. And I grabbed the definition of a team from the Oxford Dictionary as a group of people who work together at a particular job. And I feel like that doesn't quite cut it for the way that we work in conservation and should work in conservation. So I'm proposing from the Jesford Dictionary, it sounds a lot better than Jes Dictionary, a group of people who work together towards a particular purpose. And I think that this is a mental transition that could have profound impact for the way that we all collaborate, whether that's technically or not technically. It's something that I personally feel in this room, I'll admit. It's something that is one of the reasons that I've really loved working on EarthRanger since the beginning, is just the phenomenal people that we've had the opportunity to collaborate with, and the fact that we really have always felt welcomed, frankly, into this community as a member of the team. And I'd like to philosophically codify this and really adopt it into the way that we think and act. And this really is in alignment with what we've been calling, in partnership with WCS, WPS, and now the Mar Elephant Project, and we hope many, many more organizations to come, the Internet of Conservation transformation. Whereas up until now, conservation technologists, and this language is a little bit software, but it really applies to hardware also, have built things with a user in mind. Like what what does the end user need from this application? What do I need to build in order to deliver that experience? And we're proposing that we shift that to definitely keep that strong focus on the user, but also add keeping the ecosystem in mind also. And so as we're building things, how do we do that in a way that not only benefits the user of our own applications, but the user of all the other applications? And this is the shift from building applications to building what in software we call services. So it's not about what you are running on your computer. It's about instead this collection of all these different pieces that together make up the tools that you're using, and looking at those as individual blocks as opposed to one big monolithic thing. It also means that we shift the way that we think about software architecture from architecture for function to architecture for industry. The difference there being, if we're adding a new feature to EarthRanger, instead of thinking just, how do we architect this so that the icon moves in real time to the right place, can we look at the way that that is working at a fundamental level and instead change our implementation so it can be adopted by other applications, perhaps even for other purposes? And instead of going from, as I was saying, this monolithic all-in-one tool, instead, can we enable innovation? If we believe, and this is in a conversation that we've had among our IoT partnership, or sorry, IOC partnership, if you take a look at the total amount of effort that goes into developing technology, certainly software, and you set out to build the next greatest thing, right? I've got this idea. I'm going to solve this individual problem better than anyone has ever solved it before. The actual effort that you put into solving that problem when you start writing code is maybe 10-20% of what you actually do. The remainder is spent on common things that we always have to do in software. It's handling the login, it's handling the deployment of the software, handling how the software gets compiled, handling how it gets monitored and how issues are dealt with. But and then there's another layer on top of that, which are things that are perhaps not as ubiquitous, but still very ubiquitous in the types of technology that we're all building. Things like Gundi, which is the need to take data from one place and send it to another. There are many applications do that. We're proposing that instead of spending all of that time rebuilding those things over and over again, if we as a community can come together to provide those as services, that really we can focus our effort on that top 10, what was 10 and 20%, to make something that's truly unique, and instead make the majority, if not someday, maybe almost the entirety of that effort, move that into what's really makes a difference, and it is different. And through that, we will get so much further together. And so the way that we have been going about this in EarthRanger, if you take a look at what EarthRanger looked like, what year is this? 2 years ago, we had the EarthRanger product. And I think about then we started to open source it also. But what that meant is that if you went onto the internet, you could download the source code for all of EarthRanger. But if you wanted to leverage the piece that, for example, did data integration, you would somehow have to pull that apart, pull it out of EarthRanger, and move it into a separate service. And thankfully, we actually had the Smart Partnership come to us and ask us, can we leverage all of your device integrations? And we said, sure, but it's going to take a lot of work to do so, which is how we originally started working with this partnership on Gundi. And so a year later, we now have EarthRanger, we have Gundi. The exact same effort that we put into developing new integrations and new capabilities for Gundi are now also serving smart users. So when we added integrations with Global Forest Watch, for example, not only did all the EarthRanger users pick up that ability, but all smart users also picked up that ability. So while we were very happy and thrilled that I don't know at the time, 200, 250, I don't know, EarthRanger sites could now receive those deforestation alerts. That also meant that potentially there are 1,200 smart sites that could also receive those deforestation alerts. So why on earth, if we're all a member of the same capital T team, would we not also make that available through those other applications? And so that's what we did. So in 2023, we added mobile. I will admit that it was our last option to actually go out and make another mobile application, and we tried to find ways to avoid that, but for various reasons, related to what I was just talking about, with there being uniqueness in the types of data that were available from EarthRanger, we created EarthRanger Mobile. But now going into 2024, instead of going and building EarthRanger Analytics, we are heavily investing in Ecoscope. And so we went from 2-ish years ago, 100% of our effort going into things that were benefiting only EarthRanger users, to now 50% of our effort by team size going into things that are benefiting the whole conservation tech community. And our goal is to identify where in that first 50% we can also break things off to make that a smaller percentage, so more and more of our work can really help as broadly as possible. Looking at that in a non-technical lens, one of the other things that we'd really love to do is to start leveraging the community, leveraging the idea of capital T team for some of the other work that we do. So today, about a third of EarthRanger sites are deployed, if you will, through partners. So that means that our partners handle training, they handle configuration, and working with sites to make EarthRanger custom for their needs. We'd love to see that number increase, because it doesn't make sense. We can't be on the ground everywhere, and it so happens that there are a number of amazing conservation organizations that already are, so why should we do that? So we hope in 2024 to see half of the new EarthRanger deployments coming through partners as well. Other ways that we want to lean on our capital T team is we'll continue listening to everyone that we can for requirements definition, and that's both from individual users, from managers, from organizations, getting that information from everywhere that we can. But we'd also love to participate and also benefit more from collaboration around training materials and translation services and conference planning, and maybe even communications, all these things that we all do that are non-technical, but how can we do them together better? To that end, I'll also say, this conceivable, we don't know yet, this could be the last EarthRanger user conference. There will be a conference next year. It might not have the EarthRanger name on it, and we're very much okay with that. As I hope that folks have seen over the past couple of days, that's really how we operate it for the most part anyway. And I guess wearing an EarthRanger shirt spend more time up on the stage than would otherwise, but maybe except for that, we really want this, and I think it has been, and I hope it has been an opportunity for all of you to collaborate and learn from one another about anything and everything. There's way too much time and investment and brain power in this room to make that about one technology. It should be about advancing your work in any ways that we can. And so to that end, look for future announcements, but I don't know what it'll be called next year, but I look forward to seeing you there either way. With that, I'll challenge you all also to think about, how do you define and think about a team? When you say my team, are you thinking about the 4 or 5 people in your group? Are you thinking about maybe look at one of the larger organizations, the couple thousand people in your organization, or thinking about conservation? And I suggest that we can change this definition to really achieve a lot more together. So with that, I want to thank all of you very much for coming. This is the point that Jes gets sappy. I apologize. It happens every year, but I speak for the entire lowercase team. when I say that it's such an honor to be among this group of people, among this community, and we do this because we are so in awe of what you do and the difference that you make, and because we share the same goals and ideals. And so thank you so much for all of the effort that you all do to protect wildlife, to protect their habitats, to protect communities, to promoting human-wildlife coexistence. This world would truly be in a worse place without your efforts, and we believe, and the reason that we're doing this is because we're optimistic that through the efforts of folks like yourselves, perhaps with the help of folks like ourselves, we can really have a much better chance of seeing a future world where there's room for nature, where there's active wildlife, where there's even looking at that from a human perspective, less poverty and less hunger, and we look forward to doing everything that we can to help you all and to help our Capital T team achieve that. So a little more specifically, I have to thank the sponsors who made this conference possible. I won't read all of them there, but thank you so much to all of you that represent them, especially to the Smart Partnership for their generosity in taking this on together. Really appreciate both the financial support, but also the support in making it a truly collaborative, inclusive event. Thank you so much to the staff of Lagoon Beach. They've been taking very good care of us. To all of our keynote speakers and the more than 100 of you that also spoke at various sessions, thank you for really providing the reason for the conference and the content. I really appreciate all of us really appreciate that too. This is the first year that we had the luxury of having the help of an event coordination, event planning team, and also professional AV assistants. And man, did that make an enormous difference. And they were just absolutely wonderful too. So so please do also consider them for your future events, but all with intent and Fiesta Communications. Thank you. Jordan, come here, Jordan. So, middle of the day in African time zones and Asian time zones tends to be the middle of the night in Seattle. When you were receiving all those emails noon and 2 p.m. For the last 6 months, many of those were being sent by Jordan at 1, 2 in the morning. And the amount of effort and the quality of the event that has really resulted from that effort is just astronomical. It's phenomenal. You all have interfaced with Jordan at some point, so I don't need to introduce him, but there are a lot of people without whom we wouldn't be at this conference today, but really without Jordan, it just wouldn't have happened at all. So thank you, Jordan. And please don't tell OSHA, for those of you who know what that in the U.S., please don't tell OSHA, but this is actually only Jordan's half-time job. I want to thank the EarthRanger Capital T team. So that includes, of course, the core EarthRanger team who are color coordinated. but also includes all of our deployment partners, all of our technical partners, many folks without whom we wouldn't be able to do this, and who have really put together not just the application that is EarthRanger, but have really contributed to this community that is present in this room. Thank you, all of you. And last but not least, I have to acknowledge our founders. So as I was saying, there are many people without whom we wouldn't be in this room. There are also a lot of people without whom EarthRanger wouldn't exist. But there are 4 in particular without whom we never would have taken the first step. And that's Ted and Jake, who's probably hiding back in the corner somewhere over there, who are really I think we're coming up with the term godfathers. I think we're going to Don Schmidt and Don Wall. And then, of course, the support of Paul and Jody Allen, without whose trust, belief, that when Ted and Jake brought this idea to them 8 years ago, that someday it could be something represented by the hundreds of people that are here and the additional thousands of people around the world who are using the software but aren't here. It's to have the backing of an organization that allows us to do something like this without having to worry about annoying little things like revenue and profit, but really allow us to focus on what we can do to make the biggest difference in conservation without having to worry about restrictions that you might have in a for-profit environment. The fact that we can spend currently half, in the future more than half, of our development time working on things that should be our differentiating value, and the fact that we can do that, give all of that away, while we're also keeping that last quarter to make something truly unique and different, is such a gift. And to provide that level of support to that product, but also on a personal note, to myself and to my team, to get to work on a project like this. There used to be this saying, nowhere but Vulcan, that we could work on items like this, and we're no longer at Vulcan. We're now at AI2. It's still within the Paul Allen umbrella, but the sentiment still holds the same. I can't think of any other structure anywhere in the world that would allow us to do this, and so really graciously, thoroughly appreciate the gift of these 2 individuals. So with that, please do take a picture of this QR code. Please do let us know what went well, what didn't go well, so that we can be sure to make an even better event next year. I really appreciate it. And I will read a couple of logistics things. So shuttle service, on the slides that'll come up after this, there's a more specific schedule, but shuttle service is provided and covered to the airport. It will start running at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's going to run at every other hour, so all the even hours, until 6 p.m. The recommendation is that you get on a shuttle that is 3 hours before your flight's departure time. If you'd like a transfer at a different time, you can arrange that with the hotel directly, or Uber works very well here. The hotel is more than willing to store your luggage if you have a later flight departure, which probably means I missed something in here about checkout time at 10 o'clock. And they do provide late checkout. Thanks, Jordan. And of course, join us for our final meal together this evening. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. Again, at the 4 restaurants across the patio and the water. And very importantly, so who's low on drink tickets? Where's Mike Hegwin? All right. If you find yourself low on drink tickets, this is the keys to the kingdom right here. These are going to be distributed to members of the EarthRanger team that are wearing various colors of EarthRanger shirts. The cost for a ticket is to tell them about a problem that you have in your day-to-day life, or a bigger problem that you have in your job, or a request for some additional way that we might be able to help, whether that's a feature or a service, or something interesting about the places that you work or the animals that you work with. And that'll buy you an additional drink ticket. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you over at the bar.